Hello everybody, it's non-binary pal Gracious E.V.A here, and it's time for some more chill art. This one is a little more experimental, as it was inspired by a trip I took and some art I saw at a shop. The art was done almost entirely black and white with ink with a few spots of color, which was one of my favorite aesthetics. So I made the sketch in E.V.A.'s paint, and when I got home, I began working on it. The artwork itself is of my character Xavier and is of him holding a match and blowing it out surrounded by flowers. I always use flowers and fire imagery when drawing him since that's his main theme. And it was also inspired by some other things I saw on that trip. Since this artwork was primarily going to be about the line art, I put a lot of focus onto it. I used this Inky brush that I used before for my one-shot manga, and it worked pretty well. I put in a bunch of hatching lines as I went and actually did multiple layers of hatching, lowering opacity on each one to add more depth. Although it was super fun to figure out how to convey this much depth and shading with just lines, as you can imagine, my hand did start to hurt after a while, but that's okay. I even did the same thing for the highlights, except I used white for that, and I think that tied it in really well. The flame on the match was actually something I needed to look up reference for, but once I did, it was easy. I had planned for the fire to fade out into petals, and I started to hand draw those before giving up and using a brush. Once I was done with that, I added the pops of red, which ended up being in his eyes, makeup, and the flowers I drew on him, which I decided to leave as just outlines. I also used red for the background, which was also inspired by some art I saw at the shop. This one was much more painterly, so I blocked in the silhouette of Xavier first before working on that. I was having trouble keeping it circular, so I made a circle template first as a guide, and I used a textured brush to create a gradient and blended out the background, making it look like a distant sky. This was really fun to work on, and I had a little bit of trouble stopping on the blending during this whole time. Some other details I added towards the bottom of Xavier here, I like of the upper part of him, I drew like drippy lines as if he was dripping down. I do that sometimes, it's a cool effect. And yeah, I actually changed the color of the white highlights in his hair to be more red to match with the red from the fire that was drawn, since that was also red along with some of the other red elements. And yeah, I thought that would just help tie in some of the white. And I also used white as his eyelashes. I've been having a lot of fun drawing more detailed eyelashes. In fact, I've been trying to draw like more detailed faces as of late, and part of that is with the eyelashes. So yeah, super fun to draw that. How I usually draw that in this one and in any of my other artworks is I'll usually draw the eye normally like I would normally do, and then I'll draw the eyelashes on top of it, usually with a different color to make them stand out more. And yeah, that's what I did here, and I've been doing that a lot, and it's super fun. Yeah, I also gave Xavier some lipstick here too. I said makeup, or I can't remember if I said makeup or eyeshadow, but he has eyeshadow and lipstick here for fun. And for his eye, I decided not to draw like a normal like iris eye. I went with like this hatchy, swirly thing meant to look like a blocked in eye, and then have like the center be a bit more red and then fade out to kind of look like an iris, but be like a hazy version of an iris. And I think I like that quite a bit. And then also for the background, I added in more petals, a lot more petals. I drew those in white as well to match the highlights that on Xavier himself. And yeah, like I said, this was super fun to work on. I remember doing a bunch of hatching in the hair specifically to create this super strainy effect. And I did actually use a little bit, I did use a separate brush to add in a little bit more depth in the shading. I can't remember which brush I used, but it was like a texture brush. But yeah, pretty much the whole thing I just used the line art brush along with like the textured brushes. So yeah, and then towards the end, I was working entirely on a white background, but I decided to see what it would look like on a black background, and I really like that too. So this one has two versions, one on a white background and one on a black background, because I couldn't decide which one I liked more, so I just went with both. And that was pretty much it on this one. Didn't have too much to say for this one. It is a relatively simple drawing, all things considered. Like I said, it was more on the line art than anything, but yeah, I'll go ahead and let the rest of the speed paint play. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, you can subscribe if you want to watch more. All of my artwork is in the description below, as well as my comics, my website, and my Patreon. And thank you so much to Gibbous Rat for supporting me on Patreon. You can check that out if you want to see some extra stuff. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I will see you in the next video. Bye!